Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the McGonagall Boxing Podcast. It's great to be back after a few weeks off. Just want to talk about Chisora Parker 2 post-fight. What a fight, what a brilliant fight, and how that sets up the heavyweight landscape moving forward. Now, as you know, I predicted a Parker win. I predicted a Parker knockout. And if you follow my McGonagall Boxing Podcast, Instagram, Facebook and Twitter, you'd see that. I was very close. It's not to be smug in any way. I just knew that Andy for me, is right up there as one of the best coaches in the world. Love his style. He's not gung-ho, but he's aggressive. He looks to do damage with his fighters, punching with their weight firmly planted down, bad intentions. And it's not just headhunting either, is it? It's to the body. You saw that in Fury Wilder 2. You saw that the other night with Parker, to the uppercut, body and the head, not just, head hunting. Educated as well, not just getting to rush in, but setting up the punches, setting up with jabs and, feinting and subtly getting their way into range and then punching and getting back out again. Very, very good trainer. Obviously, coached himself by the legendary Emmanuel Stewart, and Adam Booth is a brilliant trainer. So kind of like the sniper style, but a little bit more aggressive, a little bit more active than, say, Adam Booth would teach you to fight. A little bit more punch output, but already you can see the improvements with Joseph Parker. For me, he's gone from a fighter that was on the wane, 28, which is crazy, but on the wane, with Higgins, who was far too passive with him. He felt like he was just trying to, hoodwink his way to points wins all the time. Using his all-round game. Now, he's sitting down, he's got an iron chin, he can do damage, he's got a big right hand on him, and he's believing in his power now. He's dominating, he's holding the centre of the ring, and he's pushing the fighters back now, and he didn't do that against Chisora in the first fight. I kind of felt he got bullied by Chisora quite a bit in the first fight, and although I think he came on strong, a bit like he did against Dillian Whyte in their first encounter, late on to snatch the points win, it's very close. This fight wasn't close. I gave Chisora a few rounds for his absolute bravery, and you need to give him credit. An absolute soldier. Many fighters would have jacked that in. Many fighters would not have got up after the third knockdown. I mean, don't get me wrong, he was badly hurt from the second round. And I said, this fight's not going long. How on earth he survived the 12 rounds, I'll never know. But listen, what was obvious is Chisora's on the wane, and I don't want to keep seeing him in them fights. Andylee made a really good point. Let's send him out in glory now. He's not going to win a world title. He's never going to be world champion. We have to be realistic here. He's not elite, and he's not going to beat the elite. But what he is, he's a level below that. He's a B-level fighter, and he'll beat a lot of heavyweights. And he's a warrior. He deserves a good payday, but in a fight that he's not the underdog in, a fight that he's 70-30 to win. We don't want to see Chisora getting beaten up again. That's kind of hard fights. Usyk, Parker, twice. It's a hard road he's having, and I don't want to keep seeing that for him. So I want to see him go out in style. I think next year should be his last year. He'll be turning 38, and eventually it catches up with you. So send him out in style. Eddie Hearn, that's your job. But I think also what we saw was a very good coach in David Caldwell and a great coach in Andy Lee. Because make no mistake about it, yes, Park was the younger, fresher fighter, but Chisora got out-coached. I mean, where was everyone was screaming. You don't have to be a boxing expert. Chisora, time and time again, got caught by the uppercut. And it's all well and good Dave Caldwell being in the corner giving that motivational pep talk, but you also need tactical talk. You need to go, right, stop doing this, stop rushing in with your head down, and be aware of that uppercut. Okay, set yourself up, which David Hay was trying to tell Joe to do. Set your punches up with a jab and then come in. Don't just wander in aimlessly. And I felt at times, maybe because he got hurt, the game plan got out the window. He just went gung-ho and went, sod it, I'm going for this now. Whereas you listen to Andy Lee, very calm in the corner. Okay, breathe. He's giving him motivational speak. You got this. This is what boxing's all about now. How much do you want it? He was saying all them kind of right words, but he's also saying, listen, don't back yourself up on the ropes. Watch out for that right hand. Pepper him. Pick your shots. Take your time. Don't get in a gunfight with this guy. You know, all clever, subtle, tactical talk. Wasn't overdone, wasn't over-talked. You don't want that within a minute's rest in the corner. Keep it simple, but it has to be tactical as well as motivational. And that's where I think Dave Coldwell fell down. And I'm not saying he doesn't always give tactical talk, but I don't think he gives it in the subtleties that Andy Lee gives it, and the in-depth and the spot on. And that's why I think Chisora got out-coached in many ways down there. But, you know, one of the judges to score at 114, 112 is absolutely criminal, which means had it not been for the 3 knockdowns, he would have given Chisora the fight. Absolute madness. I gave Chisora at best 3 rounds, and you know he had his moments. He caught Parker with some beautiful right hands, but unfortunately in every round that he did that, he got banged up himself, twice as bad often. So you can't just give Chisora, and I think this is what happens with home advantage. Oh, he landed one, and the home British judge seems to forget. Well, yeah, he landed one, but he also caught 5 in that round himself. This is what happens, you see, the home bias and the crowd. And of course, whenever Chisora landed, it was an uproar. Come on, Chisora! Whenever Parker landed, because he landed so much, it was almost deaf silence. You can't be swayed by the crowd like that. And that was bad judging. And I'm going to find out the referee's name. It eludes me for now. And, you know, ultimately, I'm going to write to the British Board of Control because I feel passionate. A bit like the great Fight Disciples podcast said exactly the same thing. They're saying, you know, disgusting judging, and it was 115-11. I think is a bit too close as well. I gave Chisora, like I say, I had it 118, 112, 117, 111 you can push for, but 115 like 112 or something like that, or 115, 113, 114, 112. This is ridiculous. I mean, you cannot give it 7-5, and if it wasn't for the knockdowns, you know, give Chisora the fight. That's mental. Sorry, it was 9-3, and that's probably been the best you could give Chisora. So listen, ultimately he was outboxed and he was outgunned, and you can't give him absolute anything more than 3 rounds in my view, but you have to give him credit for his warrior spirit. And you know, there were times throughout that fight, until it was over, you thought he's still dangerous here. He could still hurt Parker. There's no denying that. It wasn't over till it was over. You have to give him credit for staying in the fight and still being dangerous. And you have to wonder as well, if you look at the Pulev fight, the fights that he's fought, for the European title. Yeah, had a 29, 30-year-old Chisora trained and had the warrior spirit. He's now got a 37. Would he be a world champion? Maybe. But he didn't take the fight game seriously, did he? Back then, he didn't train properly. I don't think he was with the right coach, Don Charles. I think held him back at sometimes. I don't think he was training properly. Like I said, I don't think he had the motivation. At times he just ploughed through fights. I mean, I know he got outboxed by Fury, for instance, in the rematch, but he was awful in that fight. I was there live, barely threw a punch, and almost swallowed it. Threw the towel in. That wasn't Chisora that we saw on Saturday night. He was an absolute warrior. Ironically, if the 37-year-old Chisora was in the body of a 29, 28 Chisora, where it was almost like at times he'd throw the towel in, you never knew what he was going to get. Could he be asked? Could he be bothered? Was he trained properly? Often he'd be overweight, undermotivated, and almost jack it in. If you had that, I think he'd be world champion. I really do. But it was just inconsistency, and that's why he's got so many defeats on his record. Yes, from about 2015, I think he changed his motto. He said, no, I've had enough of losing. I'm going to stop training properly, and get motivated. And from the Dillian Whyte fight, he did do. When everyone thought he was going to get knocked out in that first fight, he did brilliantly to keep coming back. But, it's almost too late now, which is a shame. But it's not a shame as well, because these headline main events, pay-per-view events, he's made a great load of money now. So ultimately, he's not world champion, and he's got 11, 12 defeats now, but he's made a lot of money, he's got a lot of fame, and he's got a lot of respect, which he probably didn't have at 28, 29. But I'm just saying, it would have been very interesting. But there's only so much damage you can take. I think he got buzzed, nearly got knocked out against Usyk. Don't be fooled by the biased. Listen, after about the 3 rounds when he ran out of gas, he got scored by Usyk, who could have knocked him out, and he took his foot off the gas in the last 2 rounds. So that was a bad beating in my eyes. He's got beaten up by Parker there in that second fight. He got badly knocked out by White in their rematch. You know, you got to look at this and go, ooh, this is starting to get uncomfortable, you know. He had fairly easy fights against Spilker and David Price. Great knockouts there, but he took a lot of punishment against Takam as well before he caught let's be honest, with a fortunate right hand. He was getting banged up in that fight, barely won a round. So he's taken a lot of damage recently, and don't forget 9 years ago he got knocked out by Hay. So, you know, he got battered by Klitschko. A lot of damage in that fight. There's only so much you can take. I'd like to see him have 2 good fights next year where he's favourite, he wins them, then rides off to the sunset with 2 good paydays. He deserves that. He's a legend of British boxing, but it's knowing when to hang it up, as Tony Bellew, who I don't often agree with, says. As for Parker, wow, well, it's exciting times. Like with Andy Lee, I don't want to see him rush into a world title fight. I think he's only getting better with Lee, but it's going to take time, subtle changes, 10% better each fight. You know, I don't think there's any rush. He's still 29. You know, he's not old. He's not old for heavyweight. Doesn't need to fight for a world title next year. Let him have 2 comfortable fights. You know, kind of maybe Robert Helenius, that kind of level fighter where he's not fighting the top 5. Maybe even rematches with Fury, which will be a bit awkward because obviously the Andy Lee family connections there. But, you know, or just trying to fight like I say, the fight is just outside of Andy Ruiz rematch would be good fun. Obviously Dillian White's tied up with Fury. I wouldn't want to see him fight Wilder, who I still think is clearly in the top 5. I don't want to see him fight Hrgovic or Joe Joyce just yet either. I think they'd be great fights for late 2022 or early 2023, but let him get a few fights first, a couple more fights, then push for the world title, then push for that WBO fight, 2 more fights, and then go for Joe Joyce. What a brilliant fight that would be. And you know, either man could win that. Parker could easily beat Joyce. Joyce could beat Parker. You know, Joyce punches like a government mule, but so does Parker now. And they both got good chins. You'd probably slightly edge it towards Joyce, who's just an absolute juggernaut, and size. He's a big man. But, you know, under Lee now, the Parker, honestly, the world's his oyster. Still wouldn't back him against Wilder. Wouldn't back him against Fury simply because of the size and Fury's skill factor. But anyone else, bring it on. You know, it'd be a good fight against Joshua now as well, wouldn't it? You know, Parker punching like that could do Joshua some serious damage because, you know, he went to points last time and, you know, Parker wasn't half the fighter he is now. So, but like I say, can you imagine in a year, 18 months' time, how much better Parker's going to be? He might just well be the best fighter on the planet. But Hrgovic is a nightmare fight. You don't want him next. You don't want Joe Joyce next. Let him get like a B-grade fighter. Let him get, like I say, like a Robert Helenius, even Andy Ruiz, or, you know, around them kind of fighters, them kind of European level fights that, you know, make sense without kind of causing him too much grief. Would be perfect. Even a Pulev, you know, get him, you know, last ride for Pulev, good payday, and give Parker, you know, some decent rounds. Let him build his confidence up, 1 or 2 more fights, and then go into the world title. But as for Parker now, it's exciting times. As for Chisora, get him some paydays. Let's see him retired. But the heavyweight division is exciting. Of course it is. It's been exciting for the last 2 years, and we've got another big name in the hat now, Joseph Parker.